In one of my short form videos, I had a viewer tell me that they could only parry or dash about 25% of the time. So I set out on a quest to find out if it was possible to reliably play this game without having to engage with the whole parry dash mechanics. Short answer is that you cannot, at least I wasn't able to find a way to do it. However, if you're having issues with parrying or dodging, you might want to stick around as there are ways to mitigate how much of an impact not being able to do this all the time can have. I, like a lot of you probably, die all the time because, well, I'm just bad. I can't parry or dash to save my life, to be honest. For every new enemy I encounter, I have to grow accustomed to their movesets and quirks in order to do the whole parry thingamajig. I believe this is by design. It would be quite boring if every enemy just had the same timing and there was no way for them to surprise you, right? I know dying can be quite frustrating, but trust me, just get comfortable with failing. It will make your experience in any game much more enjoyable. I said earlier that there was a way to mitigate having to parry all the time, but before that, there is one tip that is perhaps the most important tip that can get you through this game, or any other game for that matter, and if you're able to apply this tip, everything else should be a breeze. This is going to sound cheesy as hell, but the tip is, believe in yourself. We often hear things like, I don't have the reflexes because I'm old, or I'm just bad at video games, but trust me, everybody's bad at everything when they first start out. And that applies to a new game. I mean, I've been playing games like a maniac for over 27 years, and I've died a lot while playing Clair Obscur. So, you're not alone. And if you don't believe me that you can actually do this, you can just look online and you will find plenty of examples, such as a 73-year-old dad that achieved rank 13 in WoW Classic. But that's impossible, right? His reflexes should be cooked. His joints should be hurting, right? The reality is that the human brain has the incredibly impressive ability to adapt. This 73-year-old dad made it to rank 13 in WoW Classic, and I can't even find a girlfriend. Moving on. There are even other impressive things like the 80-year-old Japanese man that climbed the Everest, and the previous record was set by a 76-year-old man. My point is that you should believe in yourself. You got this in the bag, baby. With that out of the way, let's get into the second tip, and that is building your characters. And don't worry if you made a mistake, there's no such thing in this game. You can always lower the difficulty until you get more mats to respec your characters, and you can farm the mats to reset your points in the first area of the world map. But they are rare, so it can take a while. So when it comes to building your characters, the most important stat I would argue is agility. Agility gives you speed and it gives you defense. In Lune's case, she's going to get attack power also because, you know, her weapon scales on agility currently. But if we go to someone like Mile, for example, if I go and try to level up her agility, oh, well, I don't have any points on her. But you can see that the speed and defense are yellowish, which means they are the only stats that are going to go up, right? But agility is important because agility gives you speed, and speed lets you have more turns, and the more turns you get, the less turns your enemy gets, so the more damage you can do, and if you're dead, you don't have to parry or dash that much. So for the purposes of this video, the second stat I would like to focus on, right? Remember, we're trying to avoid having to parry or dash reliably, should be defense. Defense is gonna give you defense, of course, and some critical rate. And critical rate in this game is very important. You wanna get that as close to 100% as you want, but not so much early game, right? So I would say agility and defense is what you should focus on. But what about vitality? Vitality is just ass. Vitality sucks. Because, you know, in Lune's case, her weapon is scaling with vitality. So, you know, it wouldn't be bad to put some vitality on her because her weapon is scaling with that. And that rules goes for other characters, right? You usually want to focus on the stats that their weapon scales with. But even if your weapon doesn't scale with agility, focus on agility, please. It's going to make your life much, much easier. So the reason vitality sucks is because, you know, vitality doesn't do much for you. Even if I pump vitality to 99, a lot of the enemies in the game are going to one-shot me. Of course, early game is good to get some vitality to mitigate making a mistake, right? When the enemy just hits you and you are completely dead. But vitality starts to fall off later on pretty hard. And oftentimes you will get more vitality points from your pictos than you do from your points. So what I like to do, and has worked pretty well for me, and I'm playing on expert by the way, is to just leave vitality at 0 and get my health points from the pictos. So you can see that my Lune, for example, has a lot of health, and the reason is because I have 2 health pictos on her. This one, Immediate Rest and Burning Break, which both have quite a bit of health on them. So that's how I like to make up for the fact that I don't have vitality. So if you're confused about all this, I apologize because I'm not very good at speaking. But in summary, right, you want to focus on agility. Then you want to focus on defense because, of course, it's going to help your survivability. And lastly, you want to pump some points on vitality and might early game. More vitality than might. I wouldn't say to go too crazy on might, but might is good early game. And then when you get to Act 2, you want to consider removing some points from vitality and might and focusing more on luck so you can increase your critical rate. Luck also gives you some speed, you know. So we get to go fast, go more turns, you know. Overall is better. Also for critical rate, right? Make sure that you pick pictos that help you increase your critical rate. Because trust me, that when you land good, crits are amazing in this game. They are just amazing. There are plenty of skills. I'm gonna give you an example right now. So Lune has this skill called Elemental Tricks. And every time you land a critical hit, right? You can generate a stain for ice, fire, lightning, and earth. And the reason this is good is because it allows you to cast Elemental Genesis. And this skill does a lot, and I mean a lot of damage. Like it's crazy how much damage this skill does. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna put a demonstration somewhere there.
Much potential. Meet your reckoning.
Goddamn, she's strong. Back to the video.
Danger!
So once you have built your character, you know, sort of in a smart way, allocating your points as best as you can, the next thing that you should focus on is buffs. Not all buffs, right? But there's a very, very good one called Shell that increases your defense. And this character, CL, she has a skill that I suggest you work towards as soon as you can called All Set that applies Shell, Powerful, and Rush to all your allies. And you know, CL has the ability to generate a lot of AP quickly. So you can basically apply this All Set skill almost every time. Every time after it runs out, right? You could just reapply it and have Shell 100% of the time, which will help you greatly when surviving enemy attacks in case you miss the parry or dodge. And there are also pictos like this one called Longer Shell that increase the duration of Shell, right? Making it easier to maintain the 100% uptime. As well as this one can be good, situational, but good. It's called SOS Shell, that when you get to 50% of health, when you fall below, 50% health, you immediately gain Shell. Now for tip number 3, this is not a tip to help you mitigate having to parry, but a way to be able to parry enemies' attack, even if you think they are kind of hard to see or predict. And I'm actually going to show you a fight that I had with a certain bastard that was killing me over and over again. This is the bastard right there. So I'm just gonna go and look for like the key moments, right? And tell you how, you know, how I approach it, basically, to be able to parry all of this guy's attacks. Because everything was a one-shot, pretty much. And of course, I was way under level for this fight, okay? Way under level. So this move right here that he's gonna do, he's gonna pull out a spear. And, you know, I noticed that the moment he pulls out the spear, right, you can see when he starts moving the spear forward. And that's when you should press parry. Like, you could see it. So after the spear hits the ground, there's a follow-up, right? That has a sound effect, but the sound effect just confused the hell out of me. And then I noticed that there's also a visual cue where you could see some sparks coming from the ground. And the moment you see those sparks is when you should press parry. So forget about the sound effect. So like there, you could see the sparks, you know, I let it play out. And that worked much, much better than the sound effect. Sometimes the sound effect is good enough. Sometimes the visual cue is better. So all I do is observe the enemy, you know, and see what works best. And then I make a note of it and adapt to it. And I'm going to go to another one of his moves in which I was actually counting. I was counting to match the tempo of this move. And if you don't believe me, you know, I'll put the clip of me counting and everything.
I'm ready.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So I don't know if you can hear me there very clearly because apparently I was counting way too low, right? I didn't realize, but you can kind of hear it, right? When I'm counting just to get used to his move. So sometimes you're gonna have to resort to things like that, right? Don't be afraid of counting and try to match the tempo of the moves. The other move that I want to talk about, let me find it first. So this is the skill I was talking about. Here he's gonna pull out like an ice orb, right? And there's a sound effect, but again, sound effect was confusing as hell. And what I did, it was observe the orb. And then I noticed that when all the particles are concentrating towards the middle, like the moment they concentrate towards it the most, that's when you press parry. And that helped me parry this attack much more consistently than any other method. Let me see if I can pause it like at the right time. So okay, this is like a good frame. You see all the ice particles, right? Like concentrating. And then they're going towards the orb. And then they almost disappear. Right there, they're like at the center, almost disappear. And that's when you press the parry button and you parry it. Because this bastard, he changes his attack timing for this move. So sometimes he's faster, sometimes he's slower. So the sound will just throw you off. And that's like the type of things that you have to do to like get used to parrying enemies. So yeah, don't be afraid to just take your time. Observe the enemy, right? Take notes of the moves, and then you're gonna be parrying these moves in no time.
I'll do it.
It might be like a little weird sometimes having to do that, right? But that's just part of how the game works, right? If you play a game like Sekiro, that is like a parry heavy game, right? It's like the same thing. You have to take your time and observe the enemy. It's just that this is in the context of a turn-based RPG. But the same thing, right? Just believe in yourself and you got this. And that's it for the video. I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.